Hi there, I'm Don.
And hi, I'm Cindy. Welcome to Pearls of Liberty, February 23rd, 2013. We're glad that you are joining us today. There has been a lot of talk lately about horse meat and all kinds of different food issues. We wanted to begin by discussing a food danger that Mike Adams highlighted on his website, Chinese organic food products.
Well, they're not really organic, I guess, is in a nutshell. Some of here's the thing, there are no organic standards for heavy metal contamination, and some of the worst heavy metal contamination, like mercury and lead and others like cadmium, etc., are in some superfoods that are grown in cultures like chlorella, spirulina, ones like that, and a lot of those are grown in China. And Mike highlights in his blog actually how he got a letter from some high-level organic products people and said, Mike, we don't talk about this in the organic industry. Everybody knows that they make a huge profit from these China organics, so-called, that have heavy contamination, and it's just basically an agreement within the industry not to look at it too deeply, not to look below the surface, not to think about whether or not there could be contamination. But thankfully Mike is blowing the whistle on it, and he's saying, hey, I'll talk about it, and I'm going to promote people that say that they're China-free, organizations that produce organic products that are free of the heavy metal contamination, etc., and all of the other stuff that goes with China. So China has become a convenient way for people, unscrupulous agencies, corporations in the natural food industry to hide their dirty laundry, what they're really doing. And Mike's not cooperating, National News, and he names a couple other people that are not cooperating. So we're glad to see that. It's encouraging that not everybody is just closing their eyes to this. One of the points that Mike makes, which is really excellent, is that what if this, right now it's the natural food industry itself cleaning house and saying, hey, we got these people that are really unscrupulous and we've got to deal with this. What if some mainstream outlet like the New York Times, or some major magazine like Time or Newsweek or something, did a feature story on the fraud within the natural food industry? Well, there'd be huge disillusionment, and there'd be people that would be saying that organic doesn't mean anything, and then they take that and run with it, and you would have basically the potential collapse of the whole industry, which really is the natural foods, and especially organically labeled USDA organic, is the best place to go if you want uncontaminated food. It's not perfect, but it's still the best there is. Well, the idea is, let's make it better, let's not trash it. So if this story had broken the mainstream media, that could have really wreaked havoc. And I think it's just excellent what Mike is doing at Natural News to expose the lack of standards in Chinese organic.
Well, it could still wreak havoc if it were to make it to the mainstream media. However, I suspect that it's really orchestrated by the cabal, these low-quality organics products, to sabotage the health movement and as it relates to the liberty movement. And a lot of the issues that Mike Adams is talking about, and even what Don mentioned, the chlorella and so on and so forth, these are not even just foods that people eat. These are supplements that people who are aware of their health are using to become healthier in large measure. And I think we might have mentioned months ago that 99% of the vitamin C that is used as in supplements comes from corn. And unless it's an organic supplement, there is no guarantee that that vitamin C doesn't come from a GMO corn plant. So in using supplements and trying to become healthier, we can't take anything for granted. We're so used to being able to just go to the supermarket and pick things off the shelves. But we don't have that luxury anymore. I think we need to assume that someone is slowly poisoning us through our food supply, and be very, very aggressive about finding truly healthy products.
Right. Mike is saying that he is aware of suppliers or retailers that are calling their suppliers, and they're calling up the food chain, and they're checking this stuff out. They really want to know, because this is really important stuff. And not to be too paranoid about this, but if you wanted to do in people in the liberty and natural foods movement, people that are concerned about their bodies, that are escaping this this dragnet that's out there called GMOs, and all the poisons that are in regular food, all the additives, etc., what better way to do it than to contaminate the natural food supply and have the label organic on it? It's borderline diabolical, I would say. It definitely warrants our diligence to clean it up and get it where it should be, where we all think it is.
I believe there has really been a lot of sabotage in the health foods industry. And one very simple means of sabotage has been for the very large corporations to buy up successful natural health brands. And some examples are Coke and Pepsi buying up Naked and I forget, Adwala, I think. Yeah. And a few years ago, the story is that Pepsi wanted to buy GT Dave's kombucha. And GT Dave said, no, I feel I'm obligated to preserve the quality of this. He began to make kombucha when his mother had breast cancer, and she recovered, and he credits the drink, not specifically the way he makes it even, just naturally grown kombucha with her recovery to a large extent. So after he refused, they made him an offer he couldn't refuse, and he refused it, and they went after him. And if you follow the brand at all, you're aware that a couple years ago they pulled all the GT Daves off the shelves, and he's had to slowly bring his brand back with an alternative formula. And now the original formula, which contains minute amounts of alcohol, is in a brown bottle with all the alcohol warning labels. And I'm guessing if you tried to drink it in a car as an open container, you would get a DUI. If you took it to school, to work, everybody thinks you're an alcoholic. So these good brands have been sabotaged at times. And the organic peanut butter that was contaminated a few years ago, many people became very ill. And was that sabotage? I don't know. There was water dripping from the roof that happened to have bird feces, which happened to have salmonella, and the salmonella spread throughout the organic food sector that uses peanut butter as an ingredient, that had that contaminated peanut butter. So it really does a lot to weaken the credibility and to make people doubt, why am I spending extra for this organic food?
Yeah, the processed food industry has a lot to gain by shutting down the natural and organic counterparts. And the processed food is preserved and isn't really even food, because it doesn't degrade the way a food normally would. So it's basically immune from all of these charges. It can't have these organisms growing on it because it doesn't support life. So, hey, we're talking about a rigged game here. take milk, for example. You've got dead milk that's pasteurized, and everybody thinks that that's really healthy, but it's actually got all of the life-giving organisms that come naturally with milk already killed, and it's trying to point the finger, the dairy industry, or the USDAA and the elements within that want to do away with natural foods. They're pointing their finger at the raw milk producers and say, look how unsanitary you are, when raw milk production is far more sanitary than the pasteurized dairy, because the pasteurized dairy can get away with all kinds of stuff like pus in milk and all kinds of stuff that comes with overproduction, not to mention hormones, etc., etc. So you've got a rigged game here. So you've got to look beneath the surface and don't just believe, oh, these guys are second rate and we, the packaged food industry, are pristine. That's the lie. Don't believe it.
And I don't think we want to spend maybe any time on the horse meat issue, or the issue of the fish in restaurants that is billed as one type and is actually another type. I think some of that has become a distraction over the last couple weeks. Kind of a, look over here. Well, the real news is right here. The Pope resigning and some other very significant things that are going on in the news. So I believe in the way we spend our money. We need to be very aggressive about demanding high standards of quality in our food supply. But maybe it doesn't need to be something that we think or talk about all the time, because there's so many very important, very significant things going on, and historical significance, really. So we will not say anything more about horse meat or strange flesh fish. One of the things of historical significance that people have been writing and talking about a lot over the last weeks, months, years, is the possibility of a global financial reset. And at some times, it does seem that may be imminent. And the way some writers approach the subject, seemingly people who know what they're talking about, writing about, it does seem that it is a possibility, especially as we see how weak our economy is, and the fabric of the system is growing very thin, and it does appear that it is going to need to be replaced before too long. What will it be replaced with? That is the question.
And who will be in charge of the replacement? That might be even more of a critical point, because the current system is, as most people that are even marginally aware of the liberty movement know, that the current system is based on fiat money, and that in itself is kind of a misnomer. I don't want to dig too deeply into that. I have at other times, but you've got money made out of nothing, and interest being charged on money made out of nothing that's going to a private monopoly that has a monopoly on the currency of a government, so therefore it controls the government. And that's, if you read back in the famous quotes of Rothschilds, that's just what they wanted. So we've got to transition away from that to something else. But think about it. If you were these guys and you had this phony money and you knew that you were going to eventually be found out, what would you have been doing with your phony money all along? Then you knew you'd be found out eventually. Well, you'd be stockpiling real assets, precious metals, gold, silver, whatnot, all kinds of commodities that could be used to back currencies. So it's not necessarily 100% a good thing that we go to a commodity-backed currency. I mean, we do have to have that, but we have to have a lot more than that. That doesn't ensure that we're going to have a healthy system. So we've got to not only insist on real commodities backing the money, but we've got to insist on 100% transparency and the ability of the people to control their own currency. And I don't think it should be global. I think it's got to be segmented. It's got to be, we've got to have standards to be able to deal with one another, but every region, country should have their own currency. And again, it should be transparent. One of the strongest voices for this in the blogs these days, not a financial site, but is Removing the Shackles. They're have strong relationships with the One People's Public Trust, which you may or may not have heard about that, but a very strong movement for people taking back the financial reins of our own, the fruit of our own labor. And that is the theme in the recent days at the Removing the Shackles blog, is about insisting on 100% transparency and full disclosure. And yeah, you can't have any hidden agendas or secret backroom deals in this new thing at all. If you do, it's just going to be same old, same old. It's going to be the rolling out of the New World Order, in which, and this is exactly what happened when the Federal Reserve was brought into the United States. There was this big crisis, and then the guys that created the financial crisis in the years in the late 1800s and early 1900s, they met in the back room on Jekyll Island and then posed as the saviors and said, oh, we're going to rescue you from those evil banks, and we've got it all figured out. We're going to have this great Federal Reserve System, and it's going to be, the leader's going to be appointed by the president, etc. And so it was a scam from the beginning. They always do this. They always prepare the crisis and then have their savior solution all ready to roll out with themselves, never having been fully exposed. That's why we have to insist on full disclosure and hold these guys under the microscope. And yeah, people should go to jail, not just resign, but people should be seriously penalized for the financial crimes that they've used to enslave people. And that's really what it is. It's the modern enslavement system, needs to be exposed. If it isn't, it will continue and will go into a very dark tyranny. So it's essential that we do keep the pressure on now so that this happens, so that this disclosure happens, and we can have either a new golden age or something along those lines, or a new dark ages. We're really at the crossroads.
And perhaps one of the most beneficial things that we can do is see what is happening now within the context of history and help other people see what's happening now within the context of history. As Don said, the same game has been played with people in the past. If we can tap people on the shoulder and say, hey, the same game has been played with people in the past, perhaps we can transition into a different future. And there have even been times in the past when people insisted, no, things have to change. When the British nobles got together and forced King John to enact the Magna Carta, that was a change in the direction of history. And so those have happened in the past. We need that sort of change in the direction at this time so we can move forward from here with true liberty and justice for all. Part of doing that is, as Don mentioned, exposing what has been done. And with the Pope resigning, there's a lot of buzz that it's because of participation in cover-up for pedophilia and other what we would consider inappropriate sexual behavior within the Roman Church. We don't want to just pick on the Roman Church, because this is also going on. It's been going on in the British monarchy, and with all the Jerry Saville stories that have broken lately, that is being exposed. And the U.S. politicians obviously we can intuit that they have been involved in this sort of behavior. But for a more specific example, we can look at the Bryce Taylor book, the Kathy O'Brien book, and especially Bryce Taylor's, see how Bob Hope manipulated people, videotaped them doing inappropriate behavior that would have astonished the public, and then using that as blackmail. And this has been one of the means that people have used extensively to control not only the U.S. government, but also upper echelons of other seats of power.
Right, absolutely. And I just want to add a footnote. We're extremely thankful for Hollywood people that take risks and come out and take a stand and can't be blackmailed. So there's always dirt that people have on them in order to rise to positions of influence within a corrupt society. So in your heart, have mercy, graciousness towards those that stand with liberty, even if mud is slung at them, because they know that it took courage to take that stand. And I'm not thinking of anyone in particular, but I just know that this is on the horizon, that there will be people that stand up and say, I don't care what you say about me, and then some horrible stuff comes out. And we have to recognize that they're fallen humans just like us, and they're doing the difficult thing in standing up for liberty.
Well, sure, and the terrible things may be real, or they may be invented. I mean,
absolutely.
There's not any guarantee that there have been a lot of. One of the 10 Commandments is thou shalt not bear false witness against your neighbor, and the reason that is such a priority in a code of behavior is because lives can be completely destroyed by people who are bearing false witness or even exaggerating. So that's very critical. Along the lines of not reacting too strongly against people, even if they've done wrong, or if we perceive that they've done wrong, we want to touch on racial issues, and we've addressed this before, but more and more there is an effort to stir up hatred among us and division, and get us to identify one group as the ones who have caused the problem, so that the full force of the anger and frustration that people are feeling in our nation, and the failure of the economy, the loss of jobs, the lack of money, the can't go on vacation anymore. If there could be a person who could be blamed for that, a group of people who could be blamed for that, all that could be diverted to that group of people, and the real culprits would not be identified, would not be brought to task, and their crimes against humanity would be allowed to continue.
Yeah, and there was this week a caller into Alex Jones that wanted to talk about how easy he thought it would be to take down the New World Order if we just focused on the Khazars, or I think he even said the Jews. And he was thinking about the false Jews, and he was pretty aware of what the real situation is and how a lot of the people in high finance or positions of authority have this genetic influence of not true descendants of Abraham Jews, but Ashkenazi or Khazarian Jews, and he was all like, well, let's focus on that. But Alex was giving his reasons about why that would be a bad idea. He didn't even word it quite that strongly, but I would. And I will say, agreeing with Cindy, that what that does, if you start doing that, and we have a friend that we kind of grew up within the liberty movement that saw a lot of the same things at the same time that we did, and who now sees somebody as being not a real true patriot if they don't focus on the Jews or the Khazars a lot. So this is an issue that we see personally, and I just think it's Alex's way of approaching it is the wise way, has a lot of wisdom to it. You don't want to create a division on the basis of race. The real division is on the basis of morality and corruption and falsification of evidence, especially false flag attacks, and those things that corrupt governments use. And really, the race of the people involved is irrelevant, because even if there is a race that is of people that is near the center of it, and there very well could be, and it looks like there is, and Rothschild Zionism is, as David Icke likes to label it, it can't hold together if there's not other races and other governments involved. So why focus on a race? It's counterproductive. The more people wake up and see the way the world really works, they'll see it anyway. But if you create the perception that it's all due to race, then you'll create divisions in neighborhoods with somebody that's Jewish down the street that has nothing to do with the way that the world works. So it's, I think, extremely foolish to buy into this anti-Jewish, or even to overemphasize the anti-Zionist thing. Yeah, we want to educate our Christian friends about what Zionism really is, but that doesn't mean that we focus on that so much that we lose the perspective of what it really is about. It's about justice and morality and wise government and representing the people, and rulers not ripping off the people, rulers serving the people, not lording it over the people. All of those kind of things that Alex Jones talks about on a routine basis, those are the important things. So I think it bears emphasizing from time to time that it's not an easy fix, other than, yeah, it is about good versus evil, and that is the battle of the ages. And that involves a continuing effort to open up your eyes, open up your mind, learn to see with a new perspective, learn to see things as your neighbor or somebody else sees them, and don't draw these rigid lines that are so superficial.
Alex also talked a little this week about essentially the same issue pertaining to illegal immigrants and people who have been in this country for a couple of generations, blaming illegal immigrants for the problems of this country, when many of those people have been forced here by bad policies in their own home country, and a lot of those were engineered in order to, these people set things up a long way out to play us off of one another. And when we react with anger and hatred, we are pretty much playing into their hands. So, thanks for joining us, and walk in love.
Absolutely. See the world the way that it really is. See yourself in it. Walk your walk. You are the one you've been waiting for.